And Dan, take it away, please.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Scottish edition of the ABCD Jamboree. Welcome wherever you are across the UK or the world. People checking in from all over the place. So great to have you this morning. Mark, do you want to shove up the programme slide for me, please? As if by magic, there it is. So here's our rough programme. We've done our awkward Zoom banter, and you'll see it for yourself. We've got some great speakers this morning. Two keynote speakers. We'll have Fiona McKenzie from CentreStage Communities, and also later on Tamsin Ferrier from Denny Poppies. To enable us to squeeze as many people in as possible, we've got some quick fire speakers as well, who will be doing 5 minutes or thereabouts. We'll hit them over the head or just mute them after 5 minutes if they haven't stopped, I think. But we'll have Lynne from Tamfourhill Community Hub. We've got Francis from Carbrain Hillcrest Community Council. Leah from Bulgaria. There's other long words in there that I might be brave enough to pronounce later on. And Sam and Mia from Creative Stirling. And of course, you're here as well. So there'll be plenty of chances you go into breakout rooms. We'll explain all about those when we get to them, and time for some Q&A at the end. So that's the basic program. We do have a little comfort break in the middle, you'll be pleased to know as well. But for now, it's my pleasure to introduce a guy who's described as a social explorer, managing director of Nuture Development, the faculty member of the ABCD Institute at DePaul University in Chicago. We know him as the godfather of all things asset-based community development, or better still, just as Cormac Russell. Cormac, would you give a few words to launch our Jamboree this morning?
It'd be a pleasure, Dan. Thank you very much. And great to see so many warm, lovely faces. This is our second Jamboree, and I love the idea of the Jamboree because, in my mind at least, I think it's this simple idea of rock up, bring a tent, kind of everybody has the opportunity to bring something. When I grew up and we had little kind of Jamboree weekends or whatever, what we would just simply do is everybody would have an opportunity to sing a song, say a poem, tell a story. And it's in that spirit really that we're gathering. And that's why the word Jamboree has been chosen. It's very much this idea that every single person here brings a gift, brings a story, maybe a question, or just, and maybe not just, I think the most important thing you bring is your presence, the fact that you're actually here, that you've shown up. We're expecting a little over 60, 70 people here today from all parts of the UK and all parts of the world. And I think the rhythm that's starting to evolve now a little is that each Jamboree will be hosted by a circle of folks from a particular place or with a particular interest. So this Jamboree is being hosted by friends from across Scotland. And one of the things that I've really appreciated about what they have done is their way of hosting has been so thoughtful. So they've been working behind the scenes really to think about the process as much as the product, which is very much an ABCD thing to do. And I think you'll hear a little bit more about this at the end of the session today, but our friends in Wales are also working tirelessly behind the scenes to do similar for a session we're going to have in October. So this whole idea of passing the baton on and having gatherings on a pretty regular basis is an opportunity, I feel, to do something that's uncommon. And that's to put practitioners and citizens at the center of the conversation. We're in a world that very much, I think, places experts and very high up institutional people at the center. And what we're really doing is saying that is what it may be, but we're choosing our own Jamboree and our own conversation space. So own that space, enjoy the space as much as you possibly can. And as well as bringing dilemmas and challenges, hopefully what we'll also be able to do today is bring lots and lots of practical examples of how to build shared space, how to actually do community regardless of the challenges. You know, I think a good community builder accepts the world as it is, not, tries to treat it as we would wish it to be. The world is pretty challenging at the moment, and it just seems to get progressively so. If you look at what's happening in Ethiopia at the moment is just absolutely beyond, it's just beyond words. So, you know, we're in incredibly turbulence and complex crisis-based times, and having a jamboree almost seems like a contradiction in terms. But in some way, life is not our cross to bear. It's a joy to kind of be mischievous around and to be creative about. I love the wonderful words that say, you know, ring the bells you still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So today, with all of our worries and all of our fragility, we're going to join in a spirit of joy. We're going to have a jamboree in spite of the way things are happening, not because of them. And we're going to try to hopefully talk practically about what it means to build community on your doorstep, not just online, but also on land. And I'm certainly really curious to hear practical ideas about what you're doing on land to enable people to continue to connect safely, to build relationships, and to build powerful communities where they live. So Dan, I think that's enough for me. It's just a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next.
Cormac, thank you so much for those words of welcome. I love that. Come in with a spirit of joy. Yeah, in spite of everything around, that is what we're here to truly celebrate communities. It's one thing I often get moaned at too much for focusing on all the good stuff and ignoring all the bad stuff. We know things need sorting. We know there's stuff to deal with, but if we only focus on that, we'll be dragged down to the lowest common denominators. So we celebrate, and that's why we're here this morning. So thanks again for being with us. I am now going to hand over to another member of our team who's going to introduce our first speaker. So pleased to hand over to Louise Shaw, who's a community coordinator with the Cora Foundation. Louise, over to you.
Thanks, Dan. As I was saying, it was great to see so many happy faces here this morning. We're hoping to be quite inspiring today and for everyone really to enjoy the session. So I've got the job of introducing a lady I've admired for many years. Fiona McKenzie is the founder of CentreStage. CentreStage has grown arms and legs over the years, with Fiona always having folk at the heart of it. Fiona's passion, belief and hard work has brought CentreStage, I'm sure, to where it is today. It continues to evolve, and I think she'll agree with me, it's a never-ending story. CentreStage has impacted so many people's lives, creating opportunities and positive change in a family for some people. I could tell you so much more, but that's not why I'm here. So it's my real pleasure to introduce to you Fiona McKenzie.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Have I turned off mute?
We can hear
I'm going to try and share screen because I'm very old and I'm not very good at technology in any way. Is that us? Are you seeing my screen? There we go. So I'm going to start at the very beginning, and CentreStage is one of these things that it's a kind of confusing organic thing, but to me, it's really, really simple. And I thought it'd be best just to go through a lot of pictures today. And that always helps me to kind of to crystallize the journey a wee bit. So our tagline at the moment is "Come find yourself at CentreStage," and we're based in Cumbernauld. And ultimately, we create places where people can come together, always with the arts at the front of what we do. We try to create really welcoming, happy places that allow people of any age, any background, any circumstance to come along, not just to get support, but also to have an equal opportunity to benefit from really sustained access to the arts. But starting at the very beginning, for a long, long time, for 20 odd years, I was a secondary music teacher, which was the best job in the world. It was, I am still a teacher, I just don't work within the system. I didn't fit the system, I didn't realise that until I was 40. But whilst at Grange Academy in Cumbernauld, it was the most wonderful place. And we used to do these incredible shows, and we would do them in the local theatre. I inherited this department from my father, who was, for me, the most inspirational community worker, community developer, believer in people that I've ever met. But we used to take our shows to the local theatre. And then back into the year 2000, we decided to, instead of using someone else's space, we would transform our own space in the school into something that was fit for purpose. And I had a wonderful young teacher join me at that point, a guy called Paul Matheson, who is now the CEO of CentreStage, and we co-founded it. And he was a great believer in the power of place. I was a great believer in the power of people. We were both believers in the process and the product. We didn't know what we were doing at that point. We were still really, really learning and about to go on a journey of making cataclysmic errors, but learning from them in the way. But that was back in the year 2000 when we crucified a second-year boy in Jesus Christ Superstar. That's by the by. However, through that journey, we had a wonderful community of young people and staff who came together around these productions. And back in 2002, 2003, we started thinking, would it be possible to create a place where anyone could come to be built around a community of the arts? And the concept for CentreStage was born. And back in 2005, we found this ridiculous building in the heart of Cumbernauld. But to our untrained minds, we thought it just looked full of hope and potential. And that warehouse, after remortgaging the house and getting all manner of silly loans, and still being married to my husband after this amount of time, was turned into what became CentreStage's first wee property, where we put on community performances, over 70 a year, always presented by young people, adults, people of the really diverse backgrounds who came to CentreStage just to be part of that wee community. But ultimately, things started to evolve. And that's the gospel choir that meets on a Friday night. And we started to discover that whilst we had assumed that it would be secondary age kids and adults who would want to be part of it, it actually was people of all ages, right down to babies. And latterly, before COVID, our oldest participant was 106 years old. So we've always been, oh, my screen has frozen. Oh, there we go. So we've always been about creating opportunities to bring people together, bringing generations of different families together, whether it's about dementia or Down syndrome or folk coming through the justice system or people who have experienced addiction. It really doesn't matter. When you're coming to CentreStage, you're just coming to CentreStage. And hopefully, when you're there, we're then able to wrap around the support and opportunity that you need. However, this is the picture of my life. This is inside HMP Cumbernauld back in 2011. And as the organisation was evolving, for some obscure reason, I went to the local prison, HMP Cumbernauld, and asked if they would like a music programme. For some reason, they let me in. And in my first music classroom, which is just me with a piano and making folks sing, I would do it with you. I'd be far more comfortable if we were in person than that. But in my first prison classroom, there were 10 men, 5 of whom I had taught as wee boys at Grange Academy and at Loudon Academy, who were lovely kids. They were little buggers, they were wee roasters, they were full of energy, they were really angry, but they were creative wee sparks, they were entrepreneurs in the making, and they were excluded. And the mistake of my life was to not advocate for these boys when they disappeared from my classroom. It was only when I came out of the system and discovered them in the prison and discovered that their lives had not had a better path planned by cleverer people than I. So when these men were liberated, sometimes they would come to CentreStage itself and ask for help. Now, at that point, we were just a theatre. It was not the right place. It didn't have the supports. We didn't have the networks we knew. So this was the start of a journey for us of starting to take on different places to allow communities to recognise each other, always with the arts at the front, but also wrapping around those supports. So this is where Catalyst started to develop back in 2011. So the arts were always there, enterprise was there, creativity was there, but a place to belong every day was there. You didn't have to be referred, you just wanted to choose to come, because choice brings empowerment. And that allowed the most wonderful people to reinvent themselves and to start writing a story that was theirs, not a story that was written for them by other people. They discovered they were artists, they discovered they were writers, they discovered they had hope, and they could be something other than what had been created for them through whatever had happened in their lives beyond, before we encountered them. Back, I think it was in 2014, via STV Appeal, I met the most wonderful, I met the most wonderful community and the most wonderful women in North Ayrshire, in a place called Ardere. I don't know if any of you know it. Wonderful woman called Carol Boyd was a community worker down there, and the work that woman did, the amount I learnt from her was, I still reflect on it with great, I think the word is it's gratitude, but it's also love. I learned so much from Carol and the community that she was nurturing and growing. We were invited in by STV Appeal to start doing something there. That's my kind of project, when you don't really know what the outcomes are. There we discovered not just that it wasn't just the children and young people that wanted to participate in the arts, it was the grannies, it was the wider family, it was the whole community. And the most important thing for Carol and I that we discovered back then was the impact of hunger, of food insecurity on family, on community, and on the life chances of young people. And that was the start of the development of our wider model, which eventually resulted in dignified food provision back in 2015 and onwards, where we had a project which took up to 200 tonnes a year of surplus food, transformed it into lovely aspirational meals where people could take what they need and pay what they can. And that had the added benefit of bringing people to connect around us who didn't need food, they needed company. And because there was a value on the food, they came along because that gave them the dignity they needed. But always remembering that regardless where CentreStage went, it wasn't about the food, it wasn't about the support. We had wonderful people like Carol and other community organisations who could do that stuff. For us, it was always putting in those cockamamie arts activities that regardless of how many pills for depression you're taking, you know, putting on a feather boa and a pink t-shirt and going on a stage and people smiling at you and applauding you, that gives you that real buzz. And it's trying to sustain those feelings and then ultimately connecting all of those communities into CentreStage itself. So that group of women you're seeing there with feather boas is women from across 7 or 8 different Ayrshire communities who on a Friday night would come to CentreStage for Chicks at 6. Mutual support, singing, laughter, connection beyond the project itself. Back in our year, it became important to try and give the community its own wee place. We converted a wee chip shop to become a community hub. And there's some of these amazing kids, some of the amazing folks we worked with back then. But it actually became more important that they started to use their own community centre in navigating some of the challenges that can be out there, but trying to embed their own work within their own community and not for us to be leading it. There was a huge demand for us to do dignified food in other communities. We did not want to create that dependency. So we got a bus and a statutory and filled it with all the things that we take on tour with us. So ultimately we went around 13 different communities with the music, with the food, with the fun, creating those opportunities to bring people together. But whether it's adults or children, the actual participants, the really key piece is developing the family around the participant and then the community around the family. And then giving them the opportunity to raise their voice, to shine, to get on stage, to have the applause, to help create that community. Whether you have shown someone to their seat or created the programme or operated the sound or the lighting, or that you're running the centre of the stage, without that whole team, even if you're invisible, the applause is for you as well. However, COVID came, everything turned on its backside. Cormac nailed it when he said it's a difficult world just now. We had to close overnight and lose all our core income overnight. We create our core revenue from our own classes, productions, events, which allows us to function as a charity. We had to close overnight, turned our theatre into a food production hub, and started working with private sector furloughed volunteers to get food out into as many communities as we could, working with grassroots community groups. We did our final performance from our theatre, socially distanced on Facebook, and then the day after, we had to demolish it. Because whilst this was all going on, we had taken on Scotland's biggest community-led asset transfer in Cumbernauld Academy, and we're trying to bring together the 15 different communities of interest into this single site. So March 2020 was an absolutely perfect storm. However, now onto the story of hope. I'm just going to show you where we are now and I'll wind up and hopefully get a coffee. But that is how the building looked when we took it on. It's now starting to look really, really beautiful. Inside, it was an old Victorian school. It has now become the most wonderful community destination. We're calling it a cultural, social community destination where absolutely anyone is welcome to come along, be part of the activities. COVID, this is how it looked when COVID hit. Outside, we decided we were trying to build a theatre. Theatre, absolutely no use even now. We're still not allowed to use the theatre. So we decided we would try and work with our funders to develop the outside instead. We now have a beautiful community garden outside, which is offering all manner of opportunities for further employability, further training, further volunteering. This is now the route into the place. Our cafe literally opened at the weekend. We have a grand piano in every room that I can get a piano into. This is the really crucial part. One entire wing is given over to the CentreStage neighbourhood, which allows us to work with our wider partners, whether they are in housing, childcare, the arts, mental health, youth services. We have other services as a single point of contact. So if you're coming to CentreStage for help with food, with any kind of crisis, with any support, we can then directly introduce you to our neighbours. But crucially, there's the old assembly hall. We dug right down to the foundations, built it up again, put on another stage, and have turned it into just what I hope will be the most hopeful, aspirational, inclusive destination for our community and beyond. I believe passionately in the power of people to change things. I believe we all can. I believe we should work with the willing to make the change we believe is possible. And I really, really hope that when this is passed, that you can come and find us at CentreStage. I would love to meet you. I would love to share our journey with you, and I would love to learn from all of you. So thank you so much for your time. My beeper hasn't gone off, so I think I've just brought it in. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Fiona. That was amazing. I can see a round of applause going on the screen for you. And if you want any more encouragement, Fiona, have a scroll through the chat, because there's some very encouraging messages going through there. We will share the chat after the event so you can all see the encouragement. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. And I have to say, I won't name the person, but one person did put in the chat that everything is better with a feather boa. So
it absolutely is. It absolutely is.
And I want to see that person on screen with a feather boa before the end of the conference. You know who you are, Math Pots. So I named you there. Oh, sorry. Anyway, great to. I've seen the numbers going up as well. Look, we're up to 80 people here in this jamboree. It's brilliant. If you are new in, just put your name into the chat. Let us know where you are. Brilliant. So there'll be a chance if you have any questions for Fiona. She'll be doing a Q&A session a little bit later on. So those questions are not allowed to be, can you come and do our place as well? But you may have many questions about the process that Fiona's gone through. So jot those questions down before you forget them, and we'll have that chance later on. Okay, we are going to go into some breakout rooms, and I shall hand over to my learned friend, Mark, who will explain what we're going to do.
Thank you, Dan. So I've just put in the chat, everyone, a couple of starter questions and a link to the Jamboard, where you're very welcome and invited to log your responses and answers to these questions, to Fiona's talk, and whatever else you'd like to do. We're going to put you in groups of about 4. And so, whoops. We're going to put you in groups of about 4. So you've got, and you will have, is it 15 minutes? I think it is. Well, you'll have about 15 minutes to have a chat together, groups of 4 or 5, have a chat, say hello, talk about what's happening where you are, talk about what you're doing, and talk about your reactions to Fiona's session. And we'll be back at 20 minutes to 11. Okay, and there might be time for a little bit of feedback then, but also please put your stuff in the Jamboard. So I am going to open, the rooms are random. I'm going to open them up now. Please enjoy meeting your friends and colleagues, and we'll see you in 15 minutes time.
Are we all coming back there? That's great. Have we managed to get everyone back, Mark? Oh, yeah, okay. Yep. Superb. That was great. I realized as I went into the first breakout room I was put in that I hadn't introduced myself properly, and then in the middle of introducing myself to those, I then got transported to another breakout room. So apologies to the first group I was in. I was just being transported around. So I didn't introduce myself. So I am Dan Rouse. I'm a community coach with our place Cumbernauld and Tamfourhill in the Falkirk area of Scotland, working to develop people and organisations to develop the projects instead of just standard community development of developing the project. So that's about upskilling, supporting, encouraging and doing whatever else that the local community need. And you can find out more about that. I'll put some links into the chat because we're not here to hear about me. Hope you enjoyed those chats. We'll be back into the breakout rooms later on with another couple of questions. But this is impressive because we are pretty much bang on time, which is great. We wanted to squeeze as many people into this Jamboree as possible, but without keeping us here all day because we're all busy people. So we thought about having some quick fire speakers. So we're going to have the first two of those just now. The first one, I can actually say she's not here because she couldn't make it, but we pre-recorded her talk because we knew she was going to be really busy at the community hub. So this is Lynne Boslem, who really is my boss. So, you know, I have to be nice about her. The funding for my project sits with the Tenants and Residents Association in the Tamfourhill area. Lynne is the coordinator for the community hub and treasurer for the Tenants and Residents group, and is an absolute dynamo. She really gets involved in everything. And 1 minute will be telling me that she can't take anything else on, and then 2 minutes later she tells me that she's looking up training sessions for developing something new within the hub for the young people because they've asked for it. So Lynne is brilliant, and she's going to talk about being in a community, running a community hub, and also touches on asset transfer briefly. And we should say that Lynne was voted this year by CVS Falkirk as the Volunteer of the Year. So she picked up that award a few months ago, which was great. So she apologises she can't be with us. Tuesday is absolutely manic in the hub. But Mark, if we can push the technology, and let's hear from Lynne. What led to local residents taking over the running of Tamfourhill Community Hub?
So around 2010-11, I had moved back into the area. Wanted to bring my family here for them to grow up here, and there was a number of friends that grew up from in this area as well that also moved back with their families. We remembered what it was like when we were wee, and unfortunately at that time it wasn't like that here. So we thought, how can we get involved? And it started through a youth club. We decided it started through raising money for a fun day. So we done a fun day, and it was fantastically attended. And from that one fun day, we raised something like £1,600. And the community was just so supportive and said, we want youth clubs, we want, so we went from a youth club. Within about 4 months, we had a youth club, mother and toddlers, a community building, and a number of other projects going on. It's all volunteer run, and it happened because the community wanted it. We first approached the old committee that were here, who are fantastic, but it was obviously things had changed, people had moved away, so the ladies that were in the building no longer suited the community. And I think they were at a stage in their life where they didn't know how to get the community to come back round again. So they actually, once they seen the change, they supported us, and it happened quite seamlessly after that.
How big is the programme now compared to what it was 10 years ago?
Different people accessing the building, whether it be the older generation, the younger generation. The programme's expanded a lot because we now have activities for over 55 groups. We now have activities for different ages of children across the community. We are looking to expand that further. Also have a food ladder that we never had due to COVID. But there's a number of different programmes running from the centre, most of them all volunteer run. And the ladies that come into the building that's private, that do service the community as well, they pay for a lot of the community events.
What's the structure for running it?
We used to be a charity. When we took it over, it was a registered charity with Oscar, and that serviced us fine, and it was great. And when we started talking with Falkirk Council about asset transfer and taking more on from the building, we got some advice, and they said possibly changing to a scheme. The advice for that was just to give the committee more security, give them more powers as well, because this was new to us, but some constitutions, when they're developed, might not actually give you the powers to do particular things. So we have two groups actually from our community. We have a Tamfourhill Tenants and Residents, who are now a skill, and we have the Community Hub, who's now a skill. When the Tenants and Residents went to do the park, and develop a new park, we discovered that the constitutions and no charities didn't actually give them any powers. So when we discovered that for the park, we said, look, we need to look at the hubs and make sure actually as we develop that we actually have the proper powers and the proper insurances and different stuff in place to keep expanding and to keep delivering for the community.
You mentioned about taking on the building and asset transfer. How's that going?
So that's still going. It's a long process. I think asset transfer seems to be something that's new to a lot of councils. We're in a lucky position that we are volunteer run and we have many different people within the community working within our building and volunteering within our building. Always room for more volunteers, but it really does take a team to do this sort of stuff. So if anybody's looking for to asset transfer, you need a team to be able to support all the different stuff that's going on within the building, to be able to run projects, to be able to apply for funding. But if you can get that team together, I believe that asset transfer will be good because there's so much other funding that you can access if you're not a Falkirk Council building or a whatever council you're within. Because you're limited because funders see it as it's their building and it's their priority to fix. So it gives it, hopefully will open up many doors for us.
Apart from the asset transfer, what's the hopes and plans for the future?
We just want to keep ensuring that we give the community what they're asking for. It's clear that there's a need for activities for our young people, not just our younger children, but our young people. That might not necessarily be in the building, but resources across the area so the young people have somewhere to go. There's deprivation in the area, so a lot of families need support to access services, to access money. So a lot of family support needs to be developed. We would hope to have a thriving man community here because it tends to be, we've noticed, and especially in recent years, that suicide and mental health is a big thing. So we would really like to branch out and give somewhere a social base to be able to come to meet other people, to talk and have that support that's needed, and they know where to be signposted to services. And possibly an extension of the building. We need lots more space, so I don't, whatever the community wants, where we see the needs, we would hope to just keep fulfilling it.
Thanks, Lynne, for giving your time to speak at Celebrating Communities.
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. In her absence, thank you, Lynne. And we'll share with her some of the comments that I keep seeing coming through. A number of you commenting on the park. It is an amazing park. And it has a zip wire in it. Which they're just renewing the insurance and having to change insurance brokers because their current broker is now no longer insuring zip wires. Top tip, if you're doing this thing, don't call it a death slide. It doesn't go down well with insurers. But do you know, the zip wire is there because the kids wanted it. And so they moved heaven and earth to try and get the zip wire in because so many of the teenagers in the area wanted it. You may have picked up from the pictures, it's Roman themed because it sits just off the old Antonine Wall, which is a historic Roman site. So they've kept with the theme of the area as well. So if you are in the Falkirk area, go and see that. It's just like a stone's throw from the Falkirk wheel. So they've got play parks, but go to the Tamfourhill one because it's much nicer, and you'll get a cup of coffee in the hub as well while you're there. So thanks to Lynne for sharing that with us. There may be loads of questions. I'll maybe try and field some of those later on for you if I can, from what goes on at the hub. So moving swiftly on to our second quickfire speaker, and we're going to cross just a little bit up the way to Cumbernauld into the Carbrain and Hillcrest area, and Francis Park should be there for us. And Francis, are you bringing us any slides, or are you just going to talk to us this morning?
No, I'm old style, just my talking.
Excellent. That's
and in
great.
5 minutes, I thought that's enough.
Fantastic. Over to you, Francis.
Hi, well, I'm Francis Park. I'm a Carbrain resident here in Cumbernauld. And obviously I've only got 5 minutes, so just sort of a quick brief of how we got where we are. So in 2018, I had to give up my work. I own my own care company, but I'm not getting into my whole big personal story. But my mental health took a dive. And I realised that within Carbrain, there was not only me needed support, we were one of the highest deprived areas in the UK. So there's many women amongst myself that we thought, let's get together and do something about this. Everything was a referral system. We couldn't wait. We needed to support each other. We needed a voice. So in 2019, with the support of Cora, Shazia from the Cora Foundation, we got a space in Carbrain Primary School, and the women just got together to chat, to blether, tea, coffee, and we discovered that via the put on weight, lost weight, whatever there was clothes we had that we liked, we started swapping our clothes. And before we knew it, the community heard about it, they swapped theirs, kids came in for their clothes, really good quality clothes, and we started a swap shop within the Carbrain school. So also supported the mums, the children with toys, everything. So it didn't stop at clothes, it then became toys, furniture, and then COVID hit. So, but before that, I did some cooking in the community, batch cooking, how to teach parents and children, ran Easter groups, summer groups for cooking, cooking on a budget, things we got from Ferrier at Tesco, don't throw them out, how can we cook cheaply and nutritiously. So they were running during the Easter breaks and summer breaks of 2019 and right through into the early start of 2020 and then COVID. So of course the cooking had to continue. I was getting referrals from peoples who couldn't get to the elderly parents in Carbrain and said, Frances, how do we get access to these cooked meals? One of the local shops took a box in to help donations of tins, because it was all myself at this time. And then we realised, you know, this is serious. COVID really hit big time, big lockdown came in. So Carbrain Hillcrest Community Council, which I'm part of, applied for funding along with the Cora Foundation for the resilience funding from the Scottish Government. And we got funded to enable us to on another chef. So there's myself, another cook, and one of the local schools gave us their kitchen. So we had a big space to do that. Volunteers kicked in. We became not just providing Carbrain with cooked meals and food parcels, we provided all over Cumbernauld. So it was a huge big area. We were taking referrals from local authority, from SAMH, from CASE, which is Cumbernauld Action Care of the Elderly. They provided transport for us to enable us to go collect our fair share in Glasgow, brought us the food, and along with themselves and their own community volunteers, get the food out into the community. So fast forward into May 2021, we provided 23,838 items of cooked food during COVID. That's not including the food parcels that went out. And so you can see it was a very exhausting time, not just for us, but for everybody here on this today. But during that time, we put questionnaires out. What do the community want? We know we've got a high area of addictions. So people were engaging with us hugely. We need to keep that engagement going. So the questionnaires went out. They wanted their own space. So soon as lockdown eased a bit, we managed to find a space with great difficulty because nowhere was opening up. So we had to take it on. We took on one of the units in our workspace area in Lindsay Mill here, just at Carbrain. We took the keys of that on the 4th of June, which has now become a Carbrain Community Hub. We got funding to take on a community development worker, which she started here in May. And we're now in the process of starting our own charity. So that was a quick fire of sort of pre, mid and post COVID and where we are. So yeah, we have come quite a bit in the 2 years, considering COVID got us bang in the middle. But it's all very exciting, all very humbling, and it's all run by volunteers, you know. So, and thanks to the Cora Foundation and all our funders and supporters through that time. So thank you. That's me, Francis.
Amazing, Francis. Thank you so much for that. More inspiration as always. And what we'll do.
No. Well, you need to arrange with the maintenance guys to get this stuff sorted. They've been down.
That's great, Daniel. Do you want to mute yourself, please? There you go. Thank you. We do need the maintenance guys. You're right. Absolutely. What we'll do is we'll share some of the website and Twitters and contact details for the speakers. So if you want to be further inspired and catch up more with them, we'll do that in the post Jamboree information that gets sent out to you. So there we go.
Say also, I just put Francis's evaluation for her COVID recovery project, the link to that document in the chat. You can follow that up too.
Brilliant, absolutely great. And of course that chat will be sent out to you, as will all the Jamboard stuff. I had a quick look at the Jamboard. It's real filling up nicely, and we'll fill some more on there in the next breakout rooms. So kudos to the team who put this together, because we're bang on time, in fact slightly ahead of time, which is amazing. We wanted just this not to be rushed, for us to enjoy. So this is for somewhat maybe the highlight, I don't know, but this is where you get a comfort break. You get to go and refill your mugs, whatever they may be, and we raise a glass to you to remind the other side of this, in whatever we're doing, the answer to our problems is each other. So if you want to hang on here and chat with other people, then that's great. Go and refill your mugs, and we shall reconvene at 11:10. Catching up on some of the stuff on Twitter and on the chat itself. But that's it's great. Continue. If you are tweeting, remember, use that hashtag ABCD Jamboree, and we can keep an eye on everything that's going. Some great encouragement for all the speakers, which is always nice to see. And put things into the chat here as well. Good to see some interactions. Put your contact details if you want people to get in touch with you as well. We will be looking at kind of offerings and wants and needs as we go on through the conference. So I think we are all just about up and running. Listen, we're all community people, we're all busy, so we know some of you have had to duck out already. If you do need to duck out before the end, that's okay. We won't never speak to you again. But we will send out all the recordings and all the chat stuff to everyone that's been here. After that will all come out when we deal with the post Jamboree admin, which is always the fun bit. But it's time for our second key speaker, and to introduce another one of our team, I'm going to hand over to, she'll shoot me for this, hand over to the birthday girl. Here is Hannah Gray.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce our next speaker, Tamsin Ferrier. Tamsin is a true natural community connector in the town she lives in. She has an amazing enthusiasm and hundreds of ideas about making life better together with others. Today, she's going to tell us about just one of the community-led initiatives that she's been involved with in Denny, demonstrating how folk were able to get alongside each other in a COVID-safe way during lockdown for Remembrance Sunday. So I'll pass you over now to Tamsin.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Hello, everybody. I am Tamsin. I'm just going to share my screen, 2 seconds. Can everybody see that okay? I can't see any of you, so I'm going to presume that because nobody's shouting at me, you can.
It's all good. On you go.
Perfect. So I'm going to talk to you about a community initiative that we had. So in terms of this presentation, I am literally a member of the Denny community who is really rubbish at keeping her mouth shut and has ideas and gets roped into doing all sorts of things. So at this very event last year, which was great for bringing lots of people together. Towards the end, we were chatting, and one of the participants, Jane, mentioned how really sad and frustrated that she was around how we weren't able to gather together for Remembrance. Usually for the Remembrance Sunday in Denny, we have a parade and a gathering around the War Memorial, and obviously that wasn't able to take place last year because of COVID restrictions. So as we were talking, inspiration hit. And as you may have gathered from my accent, I'm not originally from Central Scotland. And this is my hometown, where for the past few years, they have put together a poppy display of knitted poppies. And as we were talking on the call, I thought, let's do the same thing. Why can't we flood Denny and Dunny Pace with knitted and crocheted poppies? It'll be a nice way for the town to show that they're remembering without actually having to come together. So it very quickly grew arms and legs. We put some posters up around the town. We've got 2 of our local businesses on board to take in poppies from the public to collect them. We started to promote it on Facebook. We set up a Facebook page and started to really get the conversation going. And at this stage, we thought we'd probably get maybe 100, 200 poppies, and we'd do a nice little display somewhere, and it would be lovely. And that would be a really nice way to begin. So people started to knit and they started to crochet. But word started to spread. So the local paper picked it up and ran with it and told about how we were going to mark Remembrance Day. But also people started to speak. So people shared the Facebook page. They started to interact with posts. They started to say what they were doing to contribute to the poppies. And more importantly, people started having conversations. So people would speak to each other and say, have you heard about this that's happening? Are you going to do it? I know that you knit, I can provide wool to you. And it really became an opportunity for people to come together and provide their skills to do something really beautiful in a small place. We started to hear stories, which is the most important part about the project. And it was really nice to see all of the different kinds of poppies. We put out some different patterns that people could do, but people found their own. So we had a real kind of variety of poppies that were coming into people, and it was really nice. So the quotes that you'll see on the screen are all from our Facebook posts, and it was really nice to see how they were all different and that it was all different people that were creating those. And we had some amazing stories. So one of the stories that we heard was from a shop that had one of the local shops in Denny that had encouraged some of their friends and customers to get involved. And we had a lady in her 90s who had been suffering ill health, was really struggling with the isolation of lockdown, and really wasn't enjoying life too much. But she took on the poppy project and started knitting poppies for us. And it gave her such a focus to her life and really helped her well-being to know that she was part of something with the community. That was, she felt really useful. You know, she was using her skills and her talents, that she could make a real impact and an effort into the community. One of the things that was really important to us was to be really inclusive. For somebody that came up with this idea, I cannot knit and I cannot crochet. So it was really important to make sure that no matter what people wanted to do, they could be part of it. So we had people that made ceramic poppies. We had children that painted poppies. The nursery came on board, and you can see the handprints there. They all came up with lots of different creations. The local primary school filled their whole wall with the story of remembrance. Each class did different parts of the story, and there was everything from pictures of poppies to pictures of soldiers and the whole story in between. It was really important for us that everybody could take part, that people weren't excluded, and it was very much for everybody within the community to do that. And that again allowed people to connect, it allowed people to tell their stories. This was one that absolutely makes me cry every time, so fingers crossed I get through this part of the presentation in one piece. We came across this poppy while we were sorting them all out to hang them around the town. And the story behind it came out after all of the display had gone up throughout the town. We were all up, and it was a very personal story to somebody's grandpa that had served, and she really got involved in terms of her children that she looks after as a childminder, making them and telling that story. And I think that was one of the really important things that we wanted the project to do, was that for children to continue to remember the impact that the lives lost during the war had on society, it has on family history. And without having the remembrance service, we were really worried that we might lose that. So having stories like this and being able to see that the schools were involved, that nurseries were involved, that actually as people were walking through the town, they were telling the stories to those children, was really, really important. And people started to get quite creative, which was amazing. So people started to decorate their own windows, doing lots of different things to be able to remember people. And it was really nice to see people coming together to do something really good for the town. People had different reasons for doing it. So some people were doing it to remember, other people were doing it just for something to do. Lockdown was hideously boring, unless you were like me, who was working full-time the whole way through. But people needed something to do, they needed something to focus on. And this project really helped to bring people together, which was amazing. One of the things, when we first said that we were going to do this project, some of the first reactions from people were, well, it's a really nice idea, that's brilliant, but you know what Denny's like, they're going to be wrecked, people are going to rip them down, they're not going to last, you know, nice idea, but it's all going to end in tears. And we said, actually, do you know what? Okay, if they do, that's fine. What, you know, it's some knitted poppies, what damage can really be done with it? Not one single poppy was touched throughout the whole of the week that they were up within the town. Even we had some plastic artificial poppies that were handed in at the last minute, which really got sort of shoved into somewhere, and they were still standing. They could have very easily been picked out and flung around and thrown around and what have you. Nothing was touched. And I think one of the conversations that we were having in the breakout room was actually focusing on the positives in an area, and that's what we really tried to do with the poppies, was to really focus on how we could bring people together and not to expect things to go wrong. And I think about, you know, empowering a community to have faith in them is really, really important. So on a very chilly, murky November day, we could finally come together in a socially distanced way, which made the logistics of tying poppies on railings around Denny a little bit tricky, but we managed to space out. So we had a meter's distance in between us all while we were tying the poppies on, and it started to really take shape. People would walk past us and tell us how grateful they were of what we were doing, that it was such an amazing event, and they really appreciated what we were doing. And we got more and more people who would say, oh, I wish I'd known about it, I would like to take part as well. Lots of different, from all over the community, we'd spend a good chunk of a day with our fingers nearly falling off, tying poppies onto the railings. And one of the things that was really important to us was that we wouldn't leave a mess behind us. So a week later, we came back and we untied all of those poppies, took them back, and my husband was absolutely delighted to have bathfuls of poppies being washed and dried in my house for a good week and a half to get them all ready, and they're in a garage ready to go again. But it was really important to us to show that we could come and do something amazing and take it all away and like nothing had happened. That was a really important part for us. But we did it. From thinking that we would get maybe 100 poppies or something like that, we had over 1,000 poppies throughout Denny and Donny Pace tied onto railings to really celebrate that remembrance. And you can see here some of the comments that people put onto Facebook. And I think one of the huge things that came out of the project was pride in Denny and Donny Pace, which isn't always there. Even within the community, people can have quite a negative take on Denny and Donny Pace. I personally think it's got some amazing things going on. We've got amazing parts of the community who are doing loads of great work to really improve it. But as I said earlier, that natural reaction is for a negative take on the area. So to have such an outpouring of appreciation and pride and understanding that actually that community spirit can really do something amazing. So it took us 2 months from having the idea to putting the display up. It was really quick, and I think one of the really nice things about it was it didn't take a lot of resources. Yes, it took wool, it took time, but we didn't have to apply for funding to do it. We didn't have to set up a governance structure. We could just go and do it, which I think made it really, really a really nice thing that anybody could get involved with. And that was really important to us. We put the poppies up in sort of 3 separate locations around the town. 2 of them happened to be in church locations, and to be honest, that was just because that's where the railings were. There wasn't really a thought out plan around it at all. It was just so that they could go in a place that we thought would be really visible and that would be effective for people, and taking into consideration the route that the parade would usually go in. So what next? So as I said, we took in all of the poppies. We washed them and dried them, and they're stored in my garage, ready to go again. So we absolutely have plans to go again this year. But people have talked about it throughout the year, which has been amazing. And people have knitted throughout the year, so we've got more and more poppies. People have really thought about how they can do something a little bit different, how they can get other people involved in the project. So we've had one lady who has made, at last count, I think she's up to about 300 of the recycled poppies, which you can see on the bottom picture there, which is the bottom of a plastic drinks bottle, painted red with a skewer in the bottom of it, which we're going to hopefully put down a hill in Denny and Dunny Pace, so that we've got a nice bank of poppies ready to celebrate the occasion. We're also hoping to go a little bit bigger and a little bit better. So in the other picture that you can see on the bottom, you can see that there's a turret at the front of the church, and we're hoping to sort of wrap that around with poppies this year as well. It's really given people a focus. So as restrictions have gone on and off, it's, and especially for those who experience social isolation, it means that they've got something to focus on. They're still able to be part of a community. They're still able to be part of something that's happening without having to see other people and without having to come together. We really, really hope that we're going to be able to come together in a physical sense, to be able to put the poppies onto the net that will wrap around that church, so that it's a real coming together of the community. But if we can't do it, that's okay. We know that people will still feel a huge part of a community, a huge part of something special, and that together we can really help to improve the area that we live in. And by everybody doing a little bit, it makes a huge, huge difference to where we live. I really just want to say thank you. Thank you to every single person that created a poppy, because everybody did something absolutely amazing. They did something that looked great. They did something that helped to bring smiles to people's faces. But more importantly, I think they gave hope to a community that there can be improvements, that we can take pride in where we live, and that we can rely on people to respect that and to respect us trying to make things better. And I also want to say a massive thank you to you guys for organising these events, because without this event, I don't think that the Denny Poppy project would have ever happened, because I would never have met Jane, we would never have had that conversation, and we would never have started the project at all. So huge thank you to everybody that's been involved. When Hannah asked me to do this, I was like, I genuinely don't know how I'm going to talk about this project for a length of time, because we literally had an idea, we did it, we asked people to do some stuff, they did it, we put it up, and it happened, and that's it. And I think that's what makes it so great, is that it was a really, really simple idea without needing lots of resources and requirements, and people were just able to get on and do it, and that's what made it really good. I also thought I'm never going to be able to speak for very long. And I am coming in way under time because I was threatened quite a lot by not going over. But actually being able to reflect back and going back through all of our Facebook posts and all of the comments was incredibly emotional. And it was really, really nice to remember what we did and the pride that we did bring to Denny. So thank you very much for listening. If anybody wants a pattern for a poppy, please let me know and I can email you one over. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. I'm seeing lots of clapping hands around the place. I hope you can see that as well, Tamsin, as you've stopped sharing. So absolutely brilliant. And, you know, Denny's just up the road from where I live, and I drove through there and seen it and see those sites, and it does look absolutely amazing. And yeah, just keeping it simple and a Jamboree outcome as well. So yay, that's great. And I guess for many of us on this screen would love the fact that that happened without tons of paperwork. It was just an idea and it just happened. And I think we would all celebrate that happening a lot more. If there's anyone in any authority listening in here, let's try and make that happen, please, because the less paperwork, the better. Again, Tamsin, have a look through the chat because you'll be really encouraged and inspired even more. There's some great comments going through there, and I've jotted down loads of notes as well. So great. And, you know, that whole thing about don't do it, it'll get trashed. You know, we hear that all the time. I hear that from half of the community here, and the other half tell me that nothing ever happens. So, you know, where do you meet in the middle? 3.5 weeks ago, we planted 20 trees in what was going to be a community growing space. People said, don't do it, they'll get vandalized. All those trees are still in the ground, they're all still growing. And I will mention it at every opportunity that they are still growing, because, you know, just because people think it's going to get trashed, it doesn't always mean it has to be. So Tamsin, thank you very much for sharing. And Hannah, thanks for suggesting Tamsin, because I think that was a really inspiring talk for us. Friends, we're going to jump into our breakout rooms again. And this is a chance now to sort of look forwards. Mark, over to you, sir.
Yeah, I just put in the chat some starter questions. We're going to have different groups, so you'll meet some new friends. Groups of about 15 minutes again. Questions to spark you off. What are you working towards next? Future steps and collaboration opportunities. And there's a place on the Jamboard for wants and offers too. So do please use that. And of course, the Jamboard will stick around after the event too, so you can always go back and have another look at it later on. So I put those questions and the link to the Jamboard in the chat. And I'm now going to open the rooms, and we'll be back at 11:45, please. So off we go.
Apologies for that. Welcome back, everyone. I was saying some of my best stuff there and you missed it because I was on mute. But anyway, some really good chat in the breakout rooms. Hope you enjoyed that. It's lovely to see the things appearing on the Jamboards. It's all about wants and offers. If you've got something you think might be of use to other people, there's certainly things in the group I was in there, or if you are desperate for information or support on something, put your information, just drop it into the chat, just saying, I need help with, or I can offer this. And we'll collate all that around and share it around all of you at the end, or once we pull all this stuff together afterwards. So that's brilliant. Right, time for our next two quick fire speakers. And for our first one, we're going to a suburb of Scotland that you may not realize is in Scotland, because we're going to Sofia in Bulgaria. It's part of the new EU thing. But no, this is someone Mark has suggested here through Village in the City. We're going to hear from Leah Davcheva. Have I said that right, Leah?
Absolutely.
Yes, I've been practicing that all night. So that's great. Leah, love to hear from you. Over to you.
I can share my screen now, yeah?
Yep, go for it.
Oh, let me see. Oh, my goodness. Let's see. Yeah, can you see that?
Not at the minute, Leah.
Not yet. Can you see it or no?
No.
Not yet.
No, not yet. Okay. I think.
Do you want me to show the slides, Leah?
Yes, please, Mark.
That's great.
I have them here in reserve.
Brilliant. Love it when the backup plan comes together.
Plan B.
Just one more moment and we'll be on our way. There we go.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Over to you, Leah.
I'm going to talk about an emerging community we have here, and we have named it the Triangle. And what I'm going to do first is to geographically locate the community for you. Mark, please. And then I've organized my talk around sparkling moments in the development of this community which have sparkled for me. So this community, the Triangle, is situated in Sofia, in Bulgaria, in the foothills of the Vitusha mountain. And Mark, please, yeah. This is Sofia, and this is the Vitusha mountain. It is the landmark of Sofia, and this is where our Triangle is situated. It is curious that when we started the community, there was no idea of a community. When we started doing things, Mark, please, when we started doing things, the idea of community hadn't occurred to anybody. We just had a piece of land which was ugly, overgrown, thorny, bushes, rubbish, everything. And me and two of our immediate neighbors, we thought, let's do something about it. And we did. And we transformed this piece of land into, which has a triangular shape, into a beautiful garden. And then, I don't know how it happened, maybe because I worked with Mark before. I'm still working with Mark before. I'm still working with Mark. And maybe because Village in the City came up with ideas, with people, new perspectives on community life, which is quite new for the part of the world where I live. I became part of the Village in the City. And the first sparkling moment, which I'm showing to you, is people getting together. Mark, can you show the previous slide, please? Yeah. Mark? Yeah. And the first sparkling moment was when this summer we had heat wave after heat wave, and we were away from Sofia. We couldn't water the garden. Our house is not in the immediate neighborhood. So I asked neighbors to water the garden while we were away. And one of the neighbors wrote in the Viber group, of course we'll water the garden. It is such an asset to the neighborhood. So for me, the moment I read this message in the Viber group sparkled, because it was somebody saying that what we have done is really valuable. So the next thing we did after setting up the garden is the next slide, showing the first gathering. And we got together right next to the Triangle, the neighbors, you see about a dozen people, and we spoke about what a potential community might, what the benefit of a potential community might be. And one of the neighbors, the second on the right next to the guy there, she said, of course it's giving me a lot. I'm speaking with the people, I'm already speaking to people with people who I had previously seen only behind their car windows. And this is, I think, the right time to say that there is no ideology behind the community yet. There's ideology in my head, and I'm trying to find out what people want, what people need. And I'm not distributing any questionnaires, I'm not interviewing people, but I think what we need is to overcome alienation, because it's a pretty well-off neighborhood. They're professional, the families are well off. They're mostly families of professionals with their kids, different ages, behind high fences. And the very fact that we talk to each other, the very fact that we know each other's names, I think is an achievement. And then an idea came that we somehow start to know or to give an identity to our neighborhood. And our first step was to have street signs produced with the names of the street. And not only that, we wrote little tablets of why the street is named like this. And the signs are in Bulgarian, and you don't know what they say, but it's a very, very brief history of what the place is. And I think this was another good step towards kind of identifying with this community. And the next slide shows another sparkling moment, is entertainment. We invited, and it was only a couple of months ago, we invited a street musician, a guitarist. And it was 90 minutes of guitar music, people drinking something, wine, I think, having small things to eat and listening to music. So this was another step, another sparkling moment for us coming closer together. And this is our latest action. We organized a street library. And the sparkling moment was when this little kid, he's not so small actually, he's 11. He came to the setting up, to the actual opening of the street library, and he said, can we have the books organized around topics? And I said, can you do that? Can you put up signs of what each set of books is about? And he did it. Now, this is an early picture. It doesn't show the signs that the boy did. And he invented an ex libris. He himself drove that. He's having that printed now, and every book in the street library will have this ex libris. So this is what we have done so far. And a next step is to perhaps really make an effort to find out what people want. How I will do this, or probably a couple of neighbors who are my green people, like people who we really act together, I don't know yet. A questionnaire for me is a slightly formal way of finding out. Maybe some narrative interviews. I'll see.
Brilliant, Leah. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Really good to hear that inspiration. And you talked about knowing each other's names as an achievement. Someone shared on the chat earlier from one of the breakout rooms. The more people in a community who know each other by their first name, the safer that community is. I think there's something really within that about knowing each other's names. So brilliant. Thank you for sharing those sparkling moments from Sofia. Brilliant. That's great. Okay, let's whistle over to our fourth and final quick fire speaker, and we're going to cross to Creative Stirling, and over there for us we've got Sam Green, and we've got Mia McGregor with us. Sam, over to you.
Hello. So I'll just get our presentation ready, and it will be Mia that will be speaking first. Oh God, sorry. Sorry, guys.
All right. There you go. Brilliant.
There you go. Hi everyone. So my name is Mia. I am the creator of the Q project. I started the Q project 4 years ago now. The Q project was actually just completely born out of complete frustration. At the time, I was a single mum with 3 children, and I had immersed myself into education. But while in education, I was also working part-time, having the 3 kids myself, and I just felt like I was constantly having to tick these boxes to just get to the next step. And when I got to the next step, it was harder than the step before. And I just felt every time that I would have to fill in these boxes, it just almost didn't really apply to me. And I felt like there was probably lots of other people in the world that felt the exact same way about the system. So being a conceptual artist, I decided to work with that, just being completely angry and frustrated all the time. So I decided to turn those boxes that you tick into an artwork. So I started making them into 3D cubes, and I started asking people to draw on my cube. Through that, I managed to speak to hundreds and hundreds of people. I would kind of thought at the beginning people would say no, kind of like if you were handing out leaflets. It never happened to me, not once. And I just felt that people really, really like to have that conversation and that connection, even if it was just for a very, very short time. The cube started growing. It kind of got into this like big monster, and everybody wanted to take part, and everyone was like sharing the cubes that they were making. And I got to the point where I was regularly in the streets, and I was regularly at festival where people were just connecting on all different levels and sharing their stories. And then COVID hit, and that was a bit traumatic because I felt like everything that I had worked so hard to do was just kind of put on a hold. I was very lucky in the sense that I had a quick brainstorm, like how will I keep this going through lockdown? So I started sending out all these paper cubes. And again, then it just went from there. One person would post it on their social media, and another 10 people would ask for it. So with my like £400, which I saved immensely to put into the initial start of the cube, it's turned into 23,000 people, hoping that one day it'll be the largest in the world. So I will probably keep doing this forever. I like the idea that I have like a visual timeline of people's thoughts, people's visual representations of what's happening in the world, which I think is just amazing. So, I mean, I couldn't even begin to start in our little 5 minutes to tell you all the stories that have happened throughout the 4 years. But I'll pass you on to Sam because Sam's got some.
Yeah, so thanks, Leah. So I'm Sam, and I'm a community development officer for Crepe Stirling. And post-COVID, I've been working with Hannah from Strathcarron just about working in the community, and we decided we would take the cube out and start speaking to people after some, antisocial behaviour and really bad news stories that were happening in our community. So we wanted to reclaim our community space and start talking to people, and the idea that when we get to know each other, we treat each other better. At that time, our local authority we weren't allowed to take the cube outside. So we are lucky enough to be based in a community arts hub in the centre of Stirling. So on the ground floor, we've got Made in Stirling, which is our art store that sells local work. So we took the cube to there. And the event that we ran was called There's No Community Without You, and it gave us opportunity to sit and speak and create with our community over a cuppa and talk about their skills, their talents and their ambitions, and what they wanted to see happening in their community, what they've been up to in lockdown that had a positive impact for others. So we heard stories from lots of people who had lots of different interests of setting up or attending different events or activities. And we spoke to people and connected them to volunteer opportunities. We spoke to people about their interests, about social inclusion, about environmental issues or climate change, about inclusive communities, cultural celebrations, language, heritage, LGBT, gender, all different kind of stories kind of shown to light during the project, and as well as ideas for what they wanted to see happening in their community. It was like taking part in a photography festival, open air cinema, spoken word events, all these kind of things that we're trying to listen and set up in response. At the weekend, I finally managed to get the cube out in Stirling and start talking to people in collaboration with the Samaritans Rail Suicide Prevention Awareness Day, which was amazing. We got speaking to so many people, and we we're talking to people about what they can do to make them feel good and about their community skills. So, sorry, I'll move it over. So whether it was like hill walking, fishing, seeing friends, or attending local community events, seeing friends and family, there were so many things that people brought up that make them feel good. And the Cube was a real catalyst in people being able to open up and talk about how they were feeling. It took away that kind of awkwardness of sitting across the table with eyes peering on you while you open up about things that are happening in your life. People were able to, write on the Cube and create while talking about the real things that they were going through, or it meant their kids could, take part in the Cube and they could go and speak to someone and seek help, or it just meant that they could write down what they were feeling if it was something that they weren't able to say out loud. Some people were posting some really positive things for other people to read at the event to make themselves feel better, and things that they think are important, just positive messages for people to, keep on. Some of the messages that we got were really, really hard to hear. One in particular that you can see was from a young LGBT community member that we were speaking to, who I was speaking to, trying to encourage about speaking to someone, speaking to Samaritans, but they were just like, I don't want to talk to anyone. So instead, I tried to change the conversation about positive things that they would like to see happen in the community, about LGBTQ plus mapping projects we are trying to plan, and that kind of seemed to, change the kind of the conversation into excitement and positive attitudes for things that could possibly happen in the community that aren't happening now, and providing platforms for people and connections to things that they can lead on to and contribute in their communities. Basically, it's important that we listen to people and be there, and Cube has been such a great catalyst and platform for people to, come together and connect in public spaces and participate together and just get to know each other and talk about things that they maybe wouldn't have been able to without the kind of creativity. It brings out so many things in all of us that are so important, and I've been using it to put the power back in people's hands and empower them to, get involved in things, or even just talk about how they're feeling. And yeah, so yeah, that's us.
Were we 5 minutes?
Spot on. That was brilliant.
Oh, yes!
How long have you been rehearsing that? Come on.
We didn't. That was the problem.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much. And I hadn't picked up the content of that because just you were talking from Creative Stirling. I've seen those cubes. I worked in Stirling 2018, 19, and I may have even written on one of them at some point. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. And I love that. I've written that down. 400 quid into 23,000 people. I mean, if that's not a turnaround, I don't know what is. So brilliant. Well done, and thank you both for sharing. Right, that is the talks done. We're going to have a time of questions. Mark, do you want to explain how this is going to work, because it goes over my head?
Yes, so we've got 6 breakout rooms, one for each of the talks you've heard this morning, and you can choose which you go to. Now, if you've got a reasonably up-to-date Zoom, you'll be able to choose yourself which to go to, and I hope that will work. If you can't do that, please put it in the chat and I'll put you in. And we've got just under 15 minutes to do this session. So I'm going to open the rooms now, and I hope that you have the chance to join the rooms yourself. Welcome back, everybody.
We're back, and that was great. I hope you had some good time and managed to get some answers to all your questions. If you didn't, do fire those questions into the chat and we shall pass them on and try and get answers for you if we can. And here we are, bang on time, and that is almost us for this morning's Jamboree. I don't know about you, this has flown by, almost 2.5 hours, and it's just gone in a flash, and I am so inspired. I'm just about to go and tear up my to-do list and just focus on this stuff instead. I think probably won't help the stuff I'm meant to be doing, but do you know what? So what? It's all really good. How do I summarize this? I mean, look, I've got pages of scribbled notes here, and all I know is that the weekly blog I have to do for my work, which goes out on Thursday morning, will contain a lot of this. So thank you for giving me content for my blog this week, because normally I'm there on a Wednesday night not knowing what to write about. So, but some of the stuff I would pull out, some of the quotes from the people we've heard from today. We heard right at the start about this is about the process, not just the product. and we enjoy that process and involving as many people in that. And I think the mantra I've heard coming through from lots of you is this thing of, stop doing stuff to people, actually involve people, work alongside them, and actually sometimes maybe those in authority just step back a little bit and let those people that are in the communities get on it and do it. Great things. We needed to support each other. We needed a voice. Said Francis, and so they just started doing something, which was brilliant. And where they found a problem that everything was a referral system, it wasn't just something that was open. That was really good to hear from Francis. We had Fiona at CentreStage. I mean, of course, everything's better with a feather boa and stick a grand piano in every room. I think they are the mantras we hear from that. And I even love that. I forgot to write down which funding it was, but you were just funded to do something and would deal with the outcomes later. I mean, brilliant. If every fund was like that, life would be so much easier, wasn't it? We'll just do what we think's right and we'll write down the outcomes afterwards. That's great. People writing their own stories is absolutely great. And I love that CentreStage neighbourhood there, that single point of contact. I think that's really important. I'm seeing a lot of that around Scotland, where just lots of different groups are coming together. So there's a single point for people to access support from whatever they need. Tamsin, everyone doing a little bit, we can make a huge difference. Yeah, it's not all about the big efforts, is it? Just those little things can make a difference. Being inclusive, it's about abilities and ages, overcoming negativity and focusing on the positives. Love that. Thank you so much for reminding us about that and bringing hope to the community. And I think the three words I just had that stood out from Tamsin: keep it simple. It was a simple project, and she wondered how she was going to talk for 20 minutes. I think we filled it and inspired us brilliantly in that time about something that was so simple. We had some great sparkling moments from Bulgaria. And one of the quotes that was up on the presentation from Leah there, someone saying, "I've spoke with people I'd previously seen only behind car windows." How powerful that is, that someone will just drive past you or you see them through the window, actually speaking to them. And that quote that I said earlier, I'm going to reiterate this again: the more we know each other by their first name, the safer our community is. Let's just get to know each other, which is brilliant. And then Mia and Sam, that cube, turning tick boxes into something positive, something creative. Wow, love that. Thank you so much for that inspiration, Mia. And yeah, that 400 quid now going into 23,000 people. Someone on Twitter had said, if that's not a return on investment, then what is? That was absolutely brilliant. And when we get to know each other, we treat each other better. There seems to be a theme developing about actually getting to know people, isn't there? Getting to know people, really. Maybe lockdowns helped us in that a bit, because we've been forced back into our communities and into the people that are on our streets, and not just driving off to whatever it is we were doing. She was just actually in the Q&A group I was in, but Phil in Luton, from what I've seen, just wins tweet of the day, which simply says, ABCD Jamboree is incredible. Enough said. Thanks for that, Phil. And the encouragement, even for us as the group that have struggled to bring this together. We appreciate all the kind comments that have been said about today's Jamboree. And this is not the end. It's the end of our one, but it is not the end of the ABC Jamborees, because it's time for us to pass on the baton. And it's my pleasure, I think, Jessie, yes, I can see you there, Jessie. On the 8th of October, a team from Wales are going to be doing their own ABCD Jamboree, which again, we will all be invited to. Jessie, do you want to just say a few words as we pass the baton over to you?
I certainly can, Dan. Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me here today to say a few words about the Cymru Jamboree in Wales taking place next month. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd. I've really enjoyed this gathering. It's been invigorating, thought-provoking, and I am here to pick up the baton. Though, if I'm honest, I was never any good at relay on the sports field. So I hope the virtual one is slightly better. It's really good to be here at the Scottish Jamboree, following the UK-wide one earlier, and I think Cormac was a real catalyst in bringing the Welsh organising team together, as I suspect it was with you. In Wales and Scotland, it's really encouraging to see the devolved administration and policies are really becoming more community-centric and are working towards something that values people and communities at the centre. And much of the work I've been involved with in Wales is testament to this, and I think certainly what is being shown here today also. So the imperatives aren't more striking, could not be more striking. Our event in Wales is on the 8th and goes without saying you're all welcome. It'd be wonderful to develop further partnerships, fresh connections, collaborations, lots of things, exciting things happening. And I shall put the link into the chat now. And yeah, bye from me. It's lovely to have met people very briefly. Thank you.
That's great, Jessie. Diolch yn fawr. I can count to 10 in Welsh as well. I'm not going to embarrass myself and do that, but that's great.
I am, Dan. Well done.
No, brilliant. And I think in terms of passing the baton, we'll take the inspiration from the Paralympics. If you saw the relay that they did, and they just gave each other a pat on the back as they handed on. So I think that works for community, as we give you a pat on the back to pass the baton on to you. That is just about it. So just really for me to say thank you to all of you for coming. Thanks to Cormac for kicking us off, to Fiona McKenzie from CentreStage Communities, to Lynne Boslem of Tamfourhill Community Hub, to Francis Park of the Carbrain and Hillcrest Community Council, Tamsin Ferrier of Denny Poppies, Leah Davcheva from Sofia in Bulgaria, and Sam Green and Mia McGregor from Creative Stirling. Thank you so much to our team as well, who would have been absolutely lost without Mark for doing all the technical stuff. Mark, it worked. Seems to have anyway. And Hannah and Susan from Strathcowan and Louise from Cora. Thank you everyone for all the parts that you've played through this. Do you know, you find these Zoom things are great because we've been able to have people from all over the world. I was chatting to someone from Joburg in South Africa in one of the groups as well. And when you're in a conference, there's always that chat to the train station as you go after the conference. So the Zoom things is like everyone just says a really awkward goodbye, you do a wave, and then there's that awkward silence as everyone drifts off. Well, look, if you need to go. We're going to keep this Zoom chat open for about another half an hour. And if there's people you want to just chat with, then do that. It's kind of a bit of an after party type thing. You have to provide your own refreshments though, I'm afraid. But listen, thank you so much for being with us. Have great fun doing your whatever asset-based community development you are doing. And I will leave you with quite specifically 26 words, because I pulled this up after the last Jamboree. We talked about extending the alphabet because we'd got ABCD. So what would happen with the rest of the alphabet? And in a board evening moment, I pulled together the whole A to Z of asset-based community development. I'll put it in the chat in a minute, but I'm just a bit of self-indulgence really. So this is what I came up with. So we have asset-based community-driven efforts for growing hope, inspiring joy, keeping lives motivated, nurturing others, persevering, quickly reaffirming, strengthening talents, unleashing volunteers with extra youthful zest. There you go. There's your A to Z. I took a bit of license with the X, but you know, there's only so many xylophones you can stick into an A to Z. That's in the chat. Feel free to take that. It's not copyrighted at all. Friends, whatever you're doing, thank you very much. Stay safe and keep being amazing in your communities from all of us in Scotland. So long, farewell.